My millionaire son looked me dead in the eye on Mother's Day, amidst a lavish brunch that probably cost more than my car, and he asked me the question that shattered my whole world. He leaned in, his voice just above a whisper, completely sincere, and said, "Mom, do you actually like the $5,000 Clara gives you?" $5,000. That's the amount he thought I was getting every single month. 5,000. Do you understand what that means? It means that for the last 4 years, the money he'd intended for me, his mother, had been disappearing. It means his wife, my daughter-in-law Clara, the woman I had welcomed into my family, had been stealing from me. She'd been pocketing $4,500 every month, giving me only the scraps and parading as the generous savior. I honestly didn't know whether to throw my mimosa in his face or just start weeping right there in the restaurant. Was I wrong for the nuclear devastation I brought down on their perfect little life after that? Tell me, honestly, if you would have done the same thing. This story, which is still hard for me to talk about, didn't start with theft. It started with success. My son, let's call him David, was always the kind of kid you knew was going to make it big. He was sharp, driven, and had a mind for business that I honestly still don't fully understand. I was a single mom for most of his life, working 2 jobs, sometimes 3, just to keep the lights on and put him through a decent school. It was tough. I sacrificed everything, my time, my social life, my savings, because I truly believed in him. I drove a 20-year-old clunker, wore clothes until they disintegrated, and ate a lot of instant noodles. But every time David looked at me with that determined glint in his eye, I knew it was all worth it. He graduated at the top of his class, went to a prestigious university on a scholarship, though I still chipped in every spare dollar I had, and not 10 years after he finished, he hit the jackpot. His tech startup sold for an amount of money that I, a woman who meticulously clipped coupons every Sunday, couldn't even visualize. We're talking multiple millions. It was a dream come true. Not just for him, but for me. The first thing he did was pay off my tiny, worn-out mortgage and insist I quit my bookkeeping job. I was so grateful, so proud. I finally had peace of mind. Then came Clara. She was beautiful, poised, and came from a well-to-do family herself, though she always made a point of saying she was self-made. They met right before his big payout, and she was already talking about retirement funds and investments. She seemed smart and genuinely attentive to David, which was all I cared about. They got married in a huge, glamorous wedding that I mostly just watched from the sidelines, feeling a little out of place in my best dress. A few months after the wedding, David came to me with the idea for the monthly allowance, as he jokingly called it. He sat me down and said, "Mom, you deserve to live comfortably. You shouldn't have to worry about money again. I'm setting up a trust, and you'll get $5,000 deposited into your account on the 1st of every month. No questions asked. Spend it on whatever you want. Travel, hobbies, whatever." $5,000. To me, that was a king's ransom. It was more than I'd ever made in a month. It was freedom. I hugged him so tight, I thought I'd break a rib, and cried tears of pure, unadulterated relief and love. He insisted on setting it all up right away, but here's where the manipulation started, and I was too trusting to see it. Clara, ever the financial expert, stepped in. "Honey," she said sweetly, putting a perfectly manicured hand on David's arm, "we should run it through my personal accountant for tax efficiency. It's better if it comes from my side of the ledger, just for a seamless transfer and better record-keeping for the trust." David, busy with his next venture, just shrugged and agreed. "Sounds good, babe. Just make sure Mom is taken care of." Clara promised she would handle the logistics. And she did. On the 1st of the next month, $500 showed up in my account. Not 5,000. 500. I panicked. I immediately called Clara. "Clara, dear, there must be a mistake. The deposit, it's only $500. I remember her voice, so calm and soothing, practically dripping with false sympathy. "Oh, Mom, I'm so sorry. I should have explained it better." We ran the numbers and David got a little overzealous. 5,000 is actually a huge amount, and it would trigger a lot of gift taxes and complex IRS filings that would just make your life a nightmare. It would be a huge headache for us to track. So, we decided to break it down. We're giving you $500 as a gift that we personally transfer. It's completely tax-free and legal. And then, once a year, we'll give you a massive lump sum that incorporates the rest after we've paid the necessary taxes on it. This way, you get the same amount, but without any legal trouble. It's actually the smartest way to do it. You don't want to get audited, right? I remember feeling confused and a little embarrassed, as if I had been greedy. I didn't understand tax laws. She spoke with such confidence, using terms like gift tax exclusion and fiduciary responsibility, that I just accepted it. $500 wasn't $5,000, but it was still more than enough to cover my utilities, groceries, and a little leftover for a new book or a movie ticket. It was still a huge help, and I believed her about the lump sum. Every few months, she'd send a vague email, sometimes CCing David, talking about the trust accounting and how the yearly transfer was on track. David, whenever I'd casually mention the money, would just nod and say, "Clara handles it all, Mom. She's great with that stuff." And he'd smile at her, completely trusting. For 4 years, I lived on that $500 a month. I was grateful for it, but I also felt like I still had to be careful with money, and I certainly didn't feel like the financially free woman David had promised I would be. I never traveled. I bought nice things for my grandkids, but I continued to wear my old clothes. I truly believed that the rest of the money was accumulating in a tax-safe account, waiting for the yearly deposit that never seemed to arrive. Every time I asked about the lump sum, Clara would have a new reason: the market was down, the accountant was slow, a change in tax laws. It was always a perfectly logical-sounding excuse. The truth is, I hated asking. I hated feeling like a burden. So I mostly just kept quiet, relying on that small $500 and my own frugality. Clara, though, she made a show of her generosity. She'd bring me a scarf from an expensive boutique for my birthday and say, "Here, Mom, a little something extra. David, and I just want to make sure you're comfortable." Or she'd post on social media every Mother's Day about caring for the matriarch of our family and how giving back to my mother-in-law is a true privilege. I always felt a faint unease, a small voice in my head telling me something was off, but I would immediately squash it down, telling myself I was being paranoid and ungrateful. After all, David was a genius, but he was terrible with paperwork. Clara was the organized one. She was managing his wealth, so why wouldn't she manage mine? So that's the situation I was in. I was coasting, grateful for the small help, oblivious to the fact that I was being systematically and expertly robbed blind by the woman my son loved. I was convinced I was receiving a carefully managed, tax-friendly, but slightly small allowance, when in reality, I was the victim of a sophisticated, emotional con. I had to make a choice that Mother's Day. The simple, innocent-sounding question, "Mom, do you actually like the $5,000 Clara gives you?" had just laid bare 4 years of betrayal. Before I tell you what happened next, what I did that changed everything, I want you to pause and comment below. If you were me, having just discovered this massive betrayal from your own daughter-in-law, what would you have done in my shoes? Would you have confronted her privately? Would you have told your son? Or would you have waited for a better opportunity? I didn't wait. I couldn't. The blood drained from my face, so fast, I thought I might pass out right there in the velvet booth. David was looking at me with genuine confusion, waiting for an answer. Clara, who was across the table, was too busy texting to even register what he'd said. I looked at David, and then I looked at Clara. The rage was immediate, a sharp, cold burst of clarity. It wasn't about the money anymore. It was about the disrespect, the deception, the sheer, arrogant cruelty of manipulating a mother's financial stability and then lying to her son about it. She'd not only stolen from me, she'd made me feel like I was getting everything I was owed. I took a deep breath, composed my face, and turned to David. I spoke slowly, my voice low but carrying an undeniable steel. "David," I said, leaning forward just as he had, "what makes you think I'm receiving $5,000 a month?" He frowned. "Because that's what I set up 4 years ago, Mom. I told you." Clara said she arranged the automated transfer. Isn't that what you've been getting? Clara finally looked up from her phone, her eyes wide, a flicker of sheer terror passing across her face before she quickly masked it. Oh, honey, she interjected a little too quickly. We talked about this. It's the annual lump sum that's $5,000. Remember? The monthly is just a little extra to cover her expenses. I ignored her completely. My eyes stayed locked on David's. David, I repeated, the amount I have been receiving monthly for the last 4 years, the amount Clara has been sending me is $500. I paused, letting that small number hang in the air like a thunderclap. David's confusion instantly morphed into suspicion, and then a chilling realization. He turned to Clara, his jaw tight. Clara, what is she talking about? It's supposed to be $5,000. We talked about this. You were supposed to set up the full amount. Clara launched into a truly remarkable performance. David, honey, don't you remember? The tax issue. The paperwork. We agreed that $5,000 a month was too much to gift without major tax implications. We talked to the accountant. I've been sending her $500 a month to keep it tax-free and legal, and the rest is accumulating for a large, tax-efficient yearly transfer. It's all in the trust papers. Mom, why are you making it sound like I'm doing something illegal? It was a smart financial decision to protect everyone. She was desperate now, her voice getting shrill, appealing to David's fear of paperwork and legal hassle. I had her cornered. I pulled out my own weapon. Clara, I said, my voice cutting through her frantic defense. If the rest of the money, the $4,500 you withheld every month, was sitting in a tax-safe account for a yearly transfer, then where is the account statement? Show David the paper trail. For years. That's $54,000 a year. That's $216,000 you were supposedly protecting for me. Show us the account, Clara. Show David that money. She went white. All the poise, all the confidence evaporated. She stammered, the accountant has it. It's a private trust. David didn't even look at her. He had already pulled out his phone. He texted his personal lawyer, the one I knew he trusted completely, and asked one simple question. What is the maximum tax-free gift I can give my mother monthly? Less than a minute later, the reply came in. He read it out loud, his voice cold and devoid of emotion. The monthly limit is far, far above $5,000. There is no tax implication for that amount. That was the nail in the coffin. Clara tried to pivot, claiming it was for investment, that she had been growing the money for me. But David just stared at her phone, which was still open to her recent texts. He gently reached across and, with a look that should have turned her to stone, he swiped open her banking app. He didn't even need to scroll. The first few transactions were right there, a massive, recurring, automated transfer of $4,500 on the first of every month, labeled Mom Funds, straight into her personal, high-yield investment portfolio. It wasn't going into a trust. It was going into her bank account. $216,000 gone. Stolen. The silence that fell over our table was deafening, the kind that makes everyone in the restaurant suddenly stop chewing. David didn't shout. He didn't throw a fit. He simply stood up, looked at his wife, and said 2 words. It's over. He looked at me, his eyes full of a heartbroken apology, and then he walked away, leaving Clara sobbing, pleading, and finally screaming at him not to leave. I sat there for a moment longer, watching her crumble, and honestly, I felt absolutely nothing but a grim satisfaction. The aftermath was brutal. David hired the most ruthless divorce lawyer in the city. He filed for divorce the next day, citing financial fraud and theft. He immediately froze all their joint accounts and started the forensic accounting. Clara's sophisticated facade completely shattered. It turned out she had been siphoning money for other things too, not just mine. Her self-made portfolio was built on stolen funds. She lost everything. Her reputation, her social standing, and crucially, her marriage. David, meanwhile, was devastated but determined. He called me later that week, crying, and repeated the same words he had told me for years prior. Mom, you deserve to live comfortably. The next day, I received a wire transfer for $216,000, the exact amount Clara had stolen, plus another huge sum that David insisted was his way of apologizing for not verifying things sooner. He reestablished the full $5,000 monthly transfer, legally and transparently, and now he even calls me to confirm it's arrived. I haven't seen Clara since that Mother's Day. David cut her out completely. The moral of this incredibly painful story is to always trust your gut. If something feels wrong, if the explanation is too complicated, it probably is. Never feel embarrassed to ask for clarity on your own finances, no matter how much you love and trust the person handling them. I learned a $216,000 lesson in betrayal and self-advocacy. I finally have the peace of mind and the comfort my son intended for me, but the emotional scar of that betrayal will always be there. Like this video if you were on my side and think Clara got exactly what she deserved. Subscribe for more stories like this that will make your jaw drop, and please share your final thoughts on this whole mess, especially what you would have done if you were sitting at that table in the comment section below. I'll see you all in the next story.